Black Janitor's secret past as a fighter pilot stuns everyone when she's thrown into action. For 8 long years, the quiet janitor named Maya Johnson swept the same gray floors of an Air Force base where she once ruled the skies. No one looked her in the eye, no one spoke her name with respect. She was just the help. But when disaster struck one stormy afternoon, when every pilot failed and one plane had to be flown through hell to save hundreds of lives, the janitor everyone ignored suddenly stepped forward. And when Maya took that cockpit, the same people who once mocked her for her skin color would never see her the same again. Maya Johnson had once soared among the clouds, a decorated fighter, pilot whose precision and calm earned her the nickname Steel Angel. But one day, after a political scandal within her squadron and whispered prejudice from those who couldn't accept a black woman commanding white men, her career crumbled. They called it a disciplinary reassignment. In truth, it was punishment for standing up for herself. When the Air Force quietly pushed her out, she took the only job she could find near the hangars that once felt like home: janitorial work. Each morning before dawn, she'd walk through the echoing corridors of the base, mop in hand, polishing the same tiles she'd once walked across in her flight boots. Younger officers passed her without notice. Some laughed, others avoided eye contact. The few who knew her name pretended they didn't, but Maya never complained. She worked silently, eyes steady, heart heavy. Her nights were spent in a small rented room with faded medals tucked inside a shoebox under her bed. To everyone else, she was invisible, yet inside her, the spirit of a pilot never died. She still listened to the roar of engines at night, whispering to herself that maybe one day she'd fly again. That day came, but not in the way anyone expected. It began with a routine training exercise, 4 F-22s scheduled to fly through the storm-laden skies of North Carolina. The clouds rolled in thicker than predicted, lightning flashing like camera bulbs in the distance. But the command refused to call it off. "Training must continue," the colonel insisted, his words echoing through the loudspeakers. Maya, cleaning the hallway outside the control room, overheard the tension. She recognized the pattern on the radar screens, the storm's rotation forming faster than forecast. Her pilot instincts kicked in even after years of silence. She muttered softly, "They shouldn't be flying in that." Minutes later, the alarms blared. Communications with the jets were lost. Panic filled the base. One plane went down in the woods. Another lost navigation. Only one remained airborne. Pilot disoriented, oxygen dropping, fuel critically low. Commanders shouted orders, and engineers scrambled. No one could reach the surviving pilot. Every second meant a life hanging by a thread. Maya froze in the doorway, eyes locked on the radar. She knew that flight pattern. She could feel what that pilot needed to do. But when she stepped forward, an officer blocked her path. "This isn't your place," he barked. For years, she'd stayed silent. But this time she couldn't. "That's Lieutenant Harris in the sky," she said firmly. "He's losing altitude. If you give me 5 minutes, I can guide him down." The room went quiet. Some laughed, the janitor giving flight instructions. But her calm, commanding tone made even the colonel hesitate. "Sir, I flew this same pattern during Operation Silent Wind," she said, voice trembling but resolute. "If you don't let me help him, he's dead." The colonel's eyes narrowed. "How the hell would you know that?" Maya lifted her gaze. "Because I used to fly that plane." It was the first time in years anyone had truly heard her. But help from the ground wasn't enough. When another emergency hit, an uncrewed jet losing control and headed toward a populated area, someone had to take over immediately. The only backup aircraft ready to launch sat idle. None of the trained pilots was cleared for solo flight in that weather. All eyes turned toward the woman standing quietly in the corner, mop still in hand. "Get her to the cockpit," the colonel finally said. "Now!" The hangar roared to life as Maya climbed into the cockpit for the first time in nearly a decade. The seat felt the same, the switches familiar beneath her fingertips. Outside, thunder cracked and rain battered the windshield. For a moment, fear gripped her, not of flying, but of failing under their gaze. The intercom buzzed with disbelief. "We're really letting the janitor fly?" Someone whispered. But once the engines ignited, Maya's hesitation vanished. The roar of the turbines drowned out years of humiliation. Her hand steadied on the controls. She launched into the storm, slicing through clouds like a blade through silk. Inside the control tower, silence reigned. They watched the radar as her jet maneuvered with surgical precision, intercepting the spiraling, uncrewed plane. Through sheer focus and skill, Maya stabilized it, guiding it away from the town below and safely into the open sea before ejecting at the last possible second. When the parachute opened, the crowd in the control room erupted in applause. The colonel, the same man who once ignored her greetings, whispered, "She just saved hundreds of lives." Maya landed soaked and trembling, surrounded by stunned officers. For the first time, no one saw a janitor. They saw a hero. The next morning, the base was different. Her name echoed through the halls, not as a whisper of mockery, but as a story of awe. Reporters arrived, medals were discussed, and apologies mumbled. Yet Maya stayed silent through it all. She didn't need validation. Her flight spoke louder than words ever could. When asked why she never told anyone who she was, she simply said, "Because no one ever asked." That line rippled through the military community, a haunting reflection of how prejudice blinds us, how easily greatness can be dismissed when it doesn't fit expectation. Weeks later, Maya was reinstated as a training instructor. Young cadets, men and women of all colors, lined up just to meet the woman who had once been invisible. And every time she stood before them, she made sure they understood one thing. Respect has nothing to do with rank, uniform, or skin. As the camera pans out over the airfield, the sun rises behind her, casting a golden glow over the runway she once mopped clean. And somewhere in that light, you can almost hear her whisper, "Never let the world tell you that you don't belong in the sky." Because sometimes, the most extraordinary heroes are the ones everyone ignores until the storm comes. How many Maya Johnsons do we walk past every day, unseen, unheard, and underestimated? Maybe it's time we looked again.